this is my book talk. The book I chose for my book talk is titled Smog, Oil Spills, Sewage, and More, The Yucky Pollution Book. It is written by Alvin and Virginia Silverstein and Laura Silverstein Nunn. It was illustrated by Gerald Kelly, and it was published by Enslow Publishers in 2011. It is 48 pages long, and the genre is nonfiction. So this book has 5 different chapters in it, and the first 3 chapters covers the 3 different types of pollution, so air, water, and land. And it details about the many ways that pollution can happen and the harmful effects it can have on earth, animals, and humans. And the last 2 chapters are about how pollution can occur in our own homes and about climate change. And it details about how pollution can be in our own home and us not even know about it, and oftentimes that would happen in older homes that different building materials from a long time ago was used, and it would produce harmful chemicals and wouldn't be good for us to be around. They also spotlight major pollution events that happen in history, such as what we did with our garbage before we had sewer and garbage systems in place, as well as the 1989 Exxon Valdez oil spill. So that's good for it to connect to real happenings, and that's great for the students to learn about. The illustrations in this book are very colorful and animated, as you can see on the front cover. And right here they often show people being sick from the pollution, and here's a person sick from smog. It also shows people littering, and it also shows examples of pollution. So this is smog coming from cars, but I think it seemed to me like there are more real photographs in this book than illustrations. There's a few more illustrations throughout it like those I just showed, but there's lots of real world images, which is great for children to see what it really looks like in the world when pollution occurs. And I would use this book for a 5th grade science lesson. It would be great to introduce the topic of pollution using this book, and it would cover the Alabama 5th grade science standard number 16, which states to collect and organize scientific ideas that individuals and communities can use to protect Earth's natural resources and its environment. So after I introduce the topic of pollution and assess the prior knowledge, I would split the students up into 5 different groups, since there's 5 different chapters in the book. And in a scenario that I would have 5 books to pass out to the children, I would give each group a book and assign each group a chapter to read. So they would be responsible for reading the assigned chapter, and as they read, they would use a note-taking sheet that I provide. And on the note-taking sheet, as they read and they come across a way to reduce pollution, they'll just write that down on their note-taking sheet, and they'll use that later. After we have a discussion about their findings, each group will be creating a pollution simulation that would be guided by the teacher, and they would use a tin pan and lots of different other materials in it to create like a little fake earth and water, and then they would use lots of different materials to simulate those different types of pollution, so they could see it firsthand right there in front of their faces how pollution can affect the land and the water, and that's a great thing for them to see. And after we have a discussion about the simulation, we would make another real-world connection, and I would have the students write a race response. And this is where they would use that note-taking sheet. That's where it comes back in. So RACE is an acronym. It stands for restating the question, answering the question, citing evidence from text, and explaining from your own experience. So this race response would be having the children think of their own lives, their everyday life, and what is a realistic way that they themselves can help to reduce pollution. And for the citing the evidence, they'll use that note-taking sheet where they wrote down ways out of the book how to reduce pollution. So they'll use that for that part and connect it back to the text. For gifted students that might finish their paragraph early, I would have them read an article about an invention that could help to reduce pollution. And I actually did this lesson in Content Block Practicum for a 5th grade class, and it went really well. And the article that I used was about someone that made an invention that could take pollution and they turned it into ink, which is a pretty cool thing to read about. And after they read an article, and that one was just an example of one that could be used, next I would have them draw and or use different materials such as popsicle sticks, pipe cleaners, Play-Doh, rubber bands, fabric, lots of different things they could use, and I could provide for them to create a little model of an invention that they could use for pollution. And so this kind of taps into their creative side, and they can start thinking about inventing and building in ways that they could make an invention to help the world.